Yeah. Well, yeah, Colleen is facilitator today. We can maybe start with the sharing announcements and stuff like that.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I don't have a whole lot of announcements from me. Colleen Fisk for Renewable Energy Alaska Project. And I I mean, we have the Recharge Academy that's coming up in a few weeks, which I'm really excited about, but that's had a long wait list for a while now. So that's something that people can still attend, but I'm excited to have that in Alaska in a few weeks. Um, yeah, otherwise we're just like gearing up for our summer stuff, summer sessions and this teacher training. And we had to cancel a teacher training because it had not enough people sign up for it. And we were like part of a group of people who were curious maybe if other people are having that same issue with lower and lower participation. But things also changed for how teachers can get their recertification in
Mm,
Alaska. So I think that's part of it.
hmm. Is it lower standards to get their certification? Like, are there less?
Yeah. Like sort it's they have more ways of doing it. So you don't have to only have like a UAA credit, or I mean like a university credit as part of your recertification. It could also be something that's approved by the Department of
Mm,
Ed, like one of their approved providers. And I've also heard from teachers that there's a lot more available online credits that you can get that are really easy to get. And so obviously teachers are busy. And so a lot of them are using that to do their recertification. So, I mean, we did an online class that just wrapped up. That was like a self-paced course, and we had 12 people registered, then two dropped out, like told us they couldn't do it, and then two more just never responded. Like we mailed them their stuff and then they never responded, never did anything. And then one more couldn't do it and withdrew. So we were down to like seven who completed it out of the 12 that signed up. So yeah. Anyway.
yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Our teacher engagement in general we've for a long time been trying to figure out ways to amp that up because we've been struggling for a couple years now since COVID. But um, yeah, we're revamping our teacher ambassador program um from like all the feedback that we've been seeking and um are hoping to like spend some more intentional time and energy on that. So anyway, yeah, no, I definitely don't think that that's I don't think that that's anything out of the ordinary with the
Yeah.
teacher engagement right now. Um,
Well, I see, Dawn, you have this announcement. Do you want to share about that or any other announcements you got too?
Yeah, so we've got a workshop tomorrow night with really strong registration, which I'm delighted by. We've got 52 registrants from 5 different countries in American Samoa. Um, and I'm not sure why, but I guess maybe people want to learn about climate modeling, and it's by Ben Brown Steiner, Browner Stein. I always goof on that, who is program officer at NSF, who uses they've got a research day, and he did some work with us when he was in grad school. So he's using his research day to do stuff for PRI. And he wrote a chapter on climate modeling on our Earth at Home site and is going to be doing this workshop tomorrow. And so apparently it's a high interest area, which we're delighted with. So we'll see, of course, of how many of those 52 people actually show up, but we've got 52 registered right now. And we also have a summer workshop. I'll put a link in for our April newsletter, which has info on all of our coming attractions. Give me a minute for that.
All right, thanks. Anybody else want to share announcements? Or thoughts. Well, we had a few more people come in. Maybe we could do kind of finish up maybe with more introductions. Rachel, you want to do a quick intro?
Hello, good afternoon, good morning. This is, I'm Rachel, and I am a program coordinator at FAU Pine Jog Environmental Education Center. We're based in West Palm Beach, Florida. I don't really have any announcements. I've just been working hard on getting we're calling it, it's really like a summer camp. Our Climate Ready Ambassador Institute, it's 5 intensive days. And they stay the night on campus, on one of our campuses. And we have 21 excited students that are registered. They're dual enrolled with FAU and their high school. So I've just been working on that and a few other things. I did want to mention something from last meeting. I'm not sure if this is the time, but we were talking about tornadoes, if you recall, and reaching out even to the National Weather Service. So I did, and our contact replied to us right away and would be happy to present, I guess, the normal spiel if we would like to host him. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and I do need to reply to him pretty quickly. So if you can decide on what you want to do with that, that'd be great.
That's great. Yeah, thank you for calling that out, Rachel. I I think it would be great to have them come in and talk, and I need to look at the schedule and see what dates there are, but that's really good. I'll
So
get on.
Gina, I did send you an email. Did you happen to get it?
I have been out a lot on sick leave, so I'm a little bit behind on emails. I'm sure I did get it, and I'm still working my way through that. But
No worries. He
let
did
me.
give me a date, and I can tell you. I'll send that in chat.
June 11th. I see it now. Yeah, I'll
if
take
that's
care of
possible.
that.
Awesome. Just let me
Thank
know. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know, and I was gonna say you should go next. I was surprised Rachel hadn't said anything. It's been in the news.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I'm glad it's been in the news because I mean, Florida is on fire, and we are like drowning as we speak, and it's crazy. It's just crazy. So, yeah, governor decided to outlaw climate change. Oh, I spelled climate change wrong. Well, anyway, you get the picture. But there's the link to it. So, just another one of the crazy things that happen in Florida.
So much fun. Yeah. Well, do you have anything to add to Rachel's, to any announcements? You're good.
Not really. I mean, you know, I just what she said basically. And then yeah. Yeah, I think that's our biggest news is that our illustrious governor is like, you know,
It'd be
again,
nice if you
it
could
can
wipe
only
it out with
happen
the
in
stroke of a
Florida.
pen.
What's that?
Wouldn't it be nice if you could wipe it out with the stroke of a pen?
Oh, Jesus Christ. I know. Wouldn't that be nice, right? Crazy, 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 crazy. It can only happen in Florida.
You know, I've been doing some reading on that, and I almost feel like it's more for political show, because where it's actually being stricken in law, I mean, it's really not making that much of a difference, at least within the law, but like from a public perception, that's kind of how I've interpreted a lot of what's going on there. And of course, what is it? The offshore wind turbines, that's been, you know, taken away, but quite frankly, we're not a very good spot for that anyway. We're actually better suited for solar. So I don't know. I think a lot of it's more for show than anything. And at this point, it hasn't gotten really bad.
We did get one email in response to our climate modeling workshop telling us to stick to paleontology, which of course we know about climate change in large part because of paleontology, and climate change is part of paleontology. Irritating just the same.
hard to not let people get under our skin sometimes. Wendy, you want to do an intro?
Sure.
Still on?
I'm Wendy Johnson, Science Education Specialist at the National Center for Science Education. I have been absent a lot recently. We had kind of starting with NSTA and NARST and conferences and then some regional PDs. We've also been completely revising our climate change curriculum. We did a curriculum field test. It ended about a year ago. And so using all of the teacher feedback, they really want things to be shorter. Time is always an issue. And better aligned to the next generation science standards and assessments. Those are kind of like the key things. So each of our units kind of stayed the same in terms of like the phenomenon, but we really made them more like modular and said like, these are the key like must-dos. And then these are side quests, we're calling them, where, you know, if you have additional time or students are asking about that aspect, then you can go deeper. And then ending with a 3-dimensional assessment that targets one performance expectation. So we keep pushing back like when the official rollout online is going to be. Some of that is due to like website issues and what is it going to look like. So we've been like releasing parts at the professional development that we do with like Google Drive links that we're giving to teachers, but soon everything, all of the climate resources on our website will be up to date and reflect those changes. So we're really excited about those because we're experiencing really similar things. Like there's so many pressures on teachers. So for their time to come to things, for their just time to be able to like dig into a resource, they were often telling us like, this looks awesome, but I don't have time, whether that's like 2 weeks time to do the unit or like time for them to dig in and understand it prior to teaching. So we're hoping that this streamlining process like makes the materials more user-friendly, and we've gotten really good feedback from teachers so far.
Great, thanks.
My
Well,
one
like-
question, which may have been addressed the last couple weeks I was missing, I'm not sure, was is there going to be a Spring Excels online meeting, and when is that?
Yes, that's a very good question. We had some scheduling challenges that I'm trying to work through right now. So we were going to try to jump for May, but I'm looking at mid-June now, and I'm planning to send an email out to all of our group leaders this week for input on dates. I just heard back from some of our planning committee members about date preferences. So that's my next step. Yeah. Good
Thanks.
question. All right. Yeah. Anything else from folks?
Just see if Tiffany or Carolyn wanted to jump in with an intro or any announcements.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to jump in. Hi, everyone. I'm Tiffany Boyd, and I'm the Executive Director for Classrooms for Climate Action. And for those of you who don't know what we do, we are a group of retired teachers that push in and support teachers to integrate climate into what they're already teaching, because everyone on this call knows it fits everywhere. So we push in, we help with social studies, we help with science, we help with language arts, and we do this K-12. So retired teachers are basically the superheroes with time. And so that's what we do. I'll put a link in the chat here for those of you who don't know much about us. But so feeling all of your pain in Florida, just unbelievable what you guys wake up and deal with every day. So thank you for your resilience. Our governor in Colorado likes to talk out of two sides of his mouth. So very supportive of renewable energy, but will not stop issuing fracking leases. Will not stop. So oil and gas production is way high in Colorado, but he's very supportive of renewable energy, but no curtailing of oil and gas. So there you go. How about those governors? So that's what we have going on. Oh, and recently we were just interviewed on the Weather Channel. So I'll drop a link in the chat for that. I guess one of the interesting things that's been happening for us is that municipalities around us are receiving Inflation Reduction Act money for Justice 40. And so we've been able to tap in to some of these great partnerships with county funding and municipal funding around climate justice. So we're trying to make a climate justice class at the high school level right now, and have been able to receive some funding from the county for that. So that's been cool. So yeah, that's us.
Thank you. Carolyn?
Hi, I'm sorry. I've got folks in my apartment working right now. Hoping that I get hot water soon. Yeah, it's been a heck of a time up here in North Florida. We had, those really intense storms that came through, and then I lost power again this past weekend, just for a little bit and all of that. Yeah, and same deal with Florida and the governor. But I'm really looking forward to a whole bunch of workshops I've got coming up with teachers on, climate and environmental justice issues. I'm going to finally have one here in Leon County for Tallahassee. I've got one in Jacksonville. I have two coming up in Broward County. And we did have to postpone an event that was going to be in Orlando because roads weren't safe, but I'm going to be there in July. So yeah, it's going to be a really busy summer. And one publication submitted and another one due on June 1st. So if you don't see me a week or two, that's why.
Good luck.
Thank you. I'll need it.
Well, the informal topic that Gina had in mind was bolstering educational initiatives on a regional and state level, which of course feels really relevant with the Florida issues. So wondering, I don't have anything. I'm just gonna put that in the chat and chat here as suggested potential topic for discussion. I don't have immediate thoughts I wanted to talk about. I can think about it for a minute, but if other people want to jump in with thoughts or other things you've heard people talk about today that you want to jump in on, feel free. Don, do you unmute? You want
to? Sure. So we've been working on climate education legislation in New York in earnest for a year now. Last summer we wrote a bill that got introduced in the fall and now has 40 sponsors in the Assembly, I believe, and 19 in the Senate. But the legislative session ends June 5th, and it's not going to get out of committee in either house. But it's put pressure on the NYSED, the New York State Education Department, to talk to us. And we may end up with a non-legislative solution, which would be fine. And I don't think they did not seem willing to talk to us until they started hearing from legislators that stuff needs to happen. So it may work out that we do it through non-legislative means, but we're going to keep on pushing on the bills until we are satisfied that something good is going to happen with or without the bills. And it's been a super fascinating learning experience, and we're working on an article on that I think is is almost done. And relatedly, frustratingly, there's a different bill called the New York Heat Act, which is on natural gas, and the current law says that new construction has to have natural gas hookups available if it's within X number of feet from existing gas lines, and the Heat Act would change that. And that bill had a majority of the assembly as sponsors for the bill, and it doesn't look like it's going to get a floor vote. And that is seen as a result of the effective lobbying efforts of National Fuel Gas, which is a Western New York natural gas provider that's office headquarters are 5 miles that way. And that's maddening. Another interesting thing that I just learned is we've been told on the education legislation that we essentially need union support for legislators to vote on it. And I was told a couple of weeks ago that AFT almost certainly will not support it, because AFT, the American Federation of Teachers, is part of AFL, the American Federation of Labor, which includes auto workers, and therefore it is unlikely that AFT will support a climate change education bill, which is gross and very frustrating. The NEA is, there are two big teachers unions. The NEA, as far as we know, does not have that kind of issue. So hopefully we'll be getting support from them, and hopefully that will be enough to get us over the goal line. Oh, and I see Tiffany's question: how will that work to have a non-legislative solution? So the state education department can change standards and other expectations about what happens in classrooms without legislation. So we are meeting with them in June to talk about what that might look like. And yes, it feels to me like the auto industry is sort of de facto blocking this bill. I don't think they'll say that out loud, but that's my take on it.
It's interesting. As soon as you start talking about legislation, it's not, directly education related, but my nonprofit does policy work also. And like, we've been really pushing really hard for a renewable portfolio standard for the last several years, which was not passed, but a green bank was established, which we're really excited about, and some other legislation that will help with, removing pancaking tariffs so that it makes it more affordable, and being able to utilize funding from infrastructure, or, the IRA to improve our grid that we do have. And even though it's not directly related to education, I definitely talk about it a lot with teachers. Like, here, these are the things that are coming. Like, this is what's happening, if I'm in a high school classroom, I'll talk about it. Like, this is the work that's being done, and these are the things that we're seeing coming up. And so it's interesting to see that. And if you think back to it on like this state and regional level, we definitely, use work that other states have done, like for green banks or renewable portfolio standards, as a starting point for, how we're building it. So we're certainly not like leading the way in renewable energy in Alaska, at least not in legislation. I could go on a different rant about how we lead in other ways, but, in terms of like legislation. And so it's interesting thinking about that. It's not necessarily education focused, but it does provide that visibility that everybody sees, and then provides a way to talk about it, and shows that
Yeah,
really.
and the legislative efforts around climate change, whatever they are a great entree into social studies classrooms. So, that's, and I think we really need to do a better job of reaching out to social studies educators than we have done so far. There is stuff happening there, but we need a lot more.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that too.
Yeah, and I'll note that James D'Amico, I'll pull up his book, who has spoken in a CLEAN call, wrote a book on teaching climate change in the social studies classroom.
That's something that NCSE has talked a lot about as well. And it's difficult because it's like our audience is science teachers. Like, are we going to make resources for them? But this last professional development workshop that I did, I just like put on there all teachers welcome. And I did have 2 English language arts teachers and 1 social studies teacher come, which was really exciting. So I don't know if that's an option for people to right now to just kind of say, like, those teachers are looking for resources, and a lot of times they don't really understand the science. So even though I don't have like really specific, here's what you would do in an ELA class, they seem to get a lot out of, here are science activities. And of course, even within those, there are like readings, there are, things that they clearly see overlap in their course. So
yeah, and the National Council of Teachers of English does have both a book and a position statement on teaching climate change in the English language arts classroom.
Well, thanks for putting those links in the chat. I've pulled them up to review later, Don. Thank you.
Yeah, and I did not know that Zoom would let me paste an embedded link and have it work. That's a change in the software.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I discovered that today too when I put the the National Weather Service link. I didn't realize it would actually work, but it did.
I'm wondering, this thought of climate and social studies, maybe Tiffany, you can expand a little bit about how you do it in C4CA, because it's definitely something I'd like to see more of. For example, in Alaska, every high school student is required to take an Alaska studies class. And I've long thought it's so much, you could really weave in natural resources and from indigenous use of different resources through, how the oil industry has really shaped our current state, and, that could, and just really think, and the changing climate, and how even changing climate meant there's a land bridge, or, there's just so many different ways that you could incorporate that, but I just haven't really tackled it. And I'm curious how Tiffany or maybe others, if what that looks like for you.
Sure, yeah. Well, since we integrate into what teachers are already doing, they often are asking us to integrate into their social studies units. So there's a thread of civic engagement, K-12, in the school district where we support teachers. And so almost every aspect of the social studies curriculum has something to do with local issues, right? And helping kids to identify local issues and what is their role and their voice in local issues. So teachers are, they're looking for issues. And so obviously with intersectional environmentalism, no matter what they pick, there's a climate relationship, right? So if they pick the unhoused, there's a climate relationship. If they pick immigration, there's climate refugees and there's a climate relationship. And so anything really that involves civic engagement has been really, really easy. So we and I have no idea if you could ever do anything like this in Florida someday, I hope, but we begin with the end in mind. And so, if there's a policy where kids could lend their voice or a piece of legislation, then we build a unit around it. And so the way we work is like a 4 to 6 week unit that we plan with the teachers, and we are in the classroom 2 days a week. So we do the history of climate change. What is climate change? How does it relate to this issue that they're teaching? And then we always have some kind of goal or aim in mind if there's a piece of policy or legislation that the kids are going to weigh in on, because we believe that activism is education. So yeah, so the social studies has been kind of a slam dunk for us, because there's so many units of study, K-12, that are kind of like, who are change makers in your community? What's a local issue that students could weigh in on? And we just jump in and say climate change, and then we work from there. So yeah, the social studies connection has been pretty easy. We do have a partnership with the Harvest of All First Nations, which is a Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute group here, and they always come in and do a portion of our unit around stewardship. And then we always have some aspect of our units that are connected to intersectional environmentalism around justice. And so the social justice piece is always embedded. Yeah, I think social studies is really easy to fit it in for sure.
Yeah, it always felt like it would be really easy. I just haven't actually talked with a lot of social studies teachers about how that would, yet about how that would work. I mean, I've offered a session one time several years ago about including it in ELA, but it was just like kind of a short workshop as part of a bigger conference, so I didn't get a lot of like feedback from them. And I kind of
another area that we're weaving in a lot right now, that there's actually a lot of funding around, is the overlay of urban heat and redlining. And so we actually wrote a curriculum for a community forestry corps that's going to be working, recording urban heat data and working to care for and maintain trees this summer in an urban area. And really, there's a lot of IRA money right now that's connected to urban heat. And so that's another kind of science social studies overlay with redlining and disproportionately impacted communities and heat.
Yeah, we have a NOAA BWET grant with Prince George's County Schools outside of DC, which is one of the 20 largest districts in the country with 28 high schools and 135,000 students. And part of that had students looking at exactly that, heat island effects, and looking at the census tracts for poverty index and finding a very clear relationship within the district. So, since they've got 28 high schools, they've got sites across the county, which range from rural to urban, and very interesting. And actually, students, we presented that at, I think, GSA last year.
Well, I'm curious if others have thoughts about this too. Well, Florida, Rachel Ann. Think about, climate change, social studies, or just other like regional efforts, or anything else.
We teach a program called Climate Ready, and we, for students, and even though, and I don't know how this whole DeSantis thing is going to affect that. I mean, are the universities going to be like, is that going to change like what we're allowed to say? Or, right now they're not saying anything. So, there hasn't been any edicts coming down from the university to say, oh, you can't teach that anymore or whatever. But I mean, that could possibly happen. I don't know. So we're kind of, a little bit nervous about that. So anyway, yeah, so I don't know if it's going to affect us as far as what we teach and how we teach it and, whatever. So I'll have to do a little bit of reading on what the edict actually said and what we're allowed to say and whatever. And I'm sure the university will, come down and kind of tell us what to do. But
Well, and Anne and I have never really sat down and talked about this, but like I said earlier, in terms of the bill or law that was passed, it shouldn't really affect us. And it's, like I said, it's more for show. And there's not much that they can do at this point so far. I mean, that doesn't mean that they won't in the future. I mean, it's certainly that kind of step in that direction, which stinks. But there's so many surveys that go out, and I love there's a website called Invading Sea. I don't know if anyone knows about this. It's a FAU publication, actually, through Centers for Environmental Studies, right? CEF. And they do frequent surveys, blind surveys across the state. And overwhelmingly, I mean, you're 70% of our population, like, definitely don't agree with these types of things that are going on within our government. In terms of social studies, I don't know. I do think they're interested, and I do think that they want to know more. When I held some of my teacher professional development, when I was still a high school teacher, I would invite anyone to come, and we would find ways for them to include it into their curriculum. So there's books out there that are very useful in literature and looking at social issues. So I did have some teachers, like English particularly, actually. For some reason, the English department within my school was very interested in learning ways to incorporate it. But I think, social studies certainly has a place too.
Yeah, and I'll note Ingrid Zabel, who is sometimes on the call with us, my PRI colleague, is right now in an 8th grade social studies classroom that I was in last week, where Cindy Kramer, the teacher, is doing a 3-week climate change unit, and Ingrid and I will both be back next week to see the students' final presentations. So and she is presented on it at the state social studies teachers conference as well, and she is hoping to do more of that, and she's great. I'll also note that I probably a month ago, learned that Orchard Park Schools has a environmental literacy course that's co-taught by an English teacher and an earth science teacher, which I think is pretty cool. And I want to learn more about it. I don't know that much about it, but I know it exists. And I know both of the teachers a little.
One thing that's interesting is that in the studies that CEF puts out, parents or people are overwhelmingly supportive of education about climate change in the classroom. So, I think that's kind of it's just an interesting dichotomy.
So I'm not sure if I really word my question well, but is there, Dawn, you've referenced some different books. I've heard other people. Okay, so yeah, like if there's a list of like, here's some books about teaching about climate, because I know there's a bunch out there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Yale Climate Communications. I'll see if I can find it. Teacher-friendly guide to climate change. Awesome.
Dawn, I actually got one of those when I was a teacher years, when you first published it. And it was directly sent to our Science Honor Society advisor at the time. And she said, Rachel, I think this is for you. And so I looked at it, and I still have it. And it's a really good resource, actually.
Yeah, and I'll note we've updated it and put it online and de-teacherified it a little bit. We're actually, an interesting discussion for a later date might be, we have had discussions about changing the name on the website, because it's still teacher friendly, but we took a lot of that kind of teachery language out of it to make it more appropriate for use as a text for high school or undergrad classes, and coming up with a a new name for it is not a simple task. I mean, we talked about it, like Everybody's Friendly Guide to Climate Change or something like that. But you'll find the updated chapters there. We have not updated the print version, but the online version has virtual. So there are 12 chapters in the print version. I think we've updated 10 of them and brought them online now. I think that's the current count. And like I said, kind of de-teacherified it.
You know, there's actually a resource we give our teachers, and let me see if I can find it. I'll be right back.
But right now I'm just trying to search the Yale program on there, find their book list. I haven't been successful yet, so if someone else finds it, let me know.
So it's been a little time since we've had professional development. We do have a community of practice, per se, of our teachers that we held together using our Google Classroom that we created. But one of the resources we give them is the People's Curriculum for the Earth. You guys seen this before?
I know of it. Yeah.
Okay, I hope you can kind of see it. It's by Bill Bigelow and Tim Swinehart, and it actually has lessons in here. I'm talking about carbon matters and the climate crisis, and it's actually quite useful. So that's one resource for us. I'll see if I can find a link.
Thanks, Don. Yeah. Was just seeing if other people had a list too. But I'll do that later when I'm not supposed to be facilitating. Just getting distracted. Let's see. Okay, so we got about 15 minutes left. Oh, thanks, Rachel. And as we're like sharing all of these links, just a little bit shift and thoughts here is that, you know, thinking about these informal discussions, or do you think there'd be an interest in doing something like an articles discussion during one of these? Like if we sent out a couple articles, I don't know how much people would read it ahead of time, would read them ahead of time or not, but that we could have something like that, like have a theme and 2 or 3 articles or whatever to read ahead of time and then have a discussion about.
I think that could work. Give enough of advanced warning so people actually read.
Yeah. Oh, because it's always great, like having all these resources that people share. Then it's like, you obviously can't just read it while you're, sitting here, and then it's, kind of move on. So I wonder if that might be helpful. Something to think about.
In our Excels group, we've done a similar thing. So we sometimes just have like reading time, right? Like the first half of the meeting could be read this thing, and then the second half of the meeting is let's discuss it.
Yeah, and the NOAA Climate Stewards at least sometimes has had book groups. Bruce Moradovich, I think, is the facilitator for that.
I'm sorry, Don, I missed that. Did you say the NOAA Stewards?
The NOAA Climate Stewards?
Yes, I'm on that listserv, and I've actually used books that have been on. I've never, to be honest, never had conversation with anyone, but I do look at the books that come in. And as a matter of fact, I chose one for this year's class that was on that list, and I really, really like, because it focuses on what individuals can do, which is still a very, very important piece of the puzzle, I think. And I can share that link too.
Yeah, and Bruce posts the newsletters and stuff on the CLEAN list, but
Yeah, and I mean, I think I'm really glad they do that. I have also, read some of the books they've put out on that. Not that I haven't joined their discussions, but and I think maybe like articles might be something that might be more,
Yeah.
it's like people might actually read them, or you would have enough time, if we gave like 10 or 15 minutes at the beginning to like read it or something, you could do that potentially. Anyway, mental note, Gina, if we can think about that for when I facilitate in August or something.
You know, another option, because we have learners that are visual and that need, may need to read, may need to hear it, auditory, right? So, little short videos work too.
Mhm.
And so if
Yeah.
we can find even like little shorts that describe a topic or look at a topic, they can be very effective teaching tools.
Yeah.
That's how I've
Yeah.
been able to utilize this here, actually, is using the shorts.
Yeah, and the Fifth National Climate Assessment has a series of podcasts that goes with it, as well as the text, and it also has an art chapter, which is interesting.
Yeah, I think that's great. It definitely could have a variety of resources, like you'd have a theme and then you could have a couple different, maybe there's one that's an article, one that's a video, one that's a podcast or something. I think could be a good way to present it for discussion. Yeah, okay. Think about that. Other thoughts? Things that have been sparked, people we've been talking.
I mentioned in the chat the summer workshop that we have, which will include a concert as part of it with Ben Luce, who is a physicist, and he worked for years at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, and then was a physics professor at a small college in Vermont that is, like many small colleges, struggling, and he has moved back to Western New York, which is where I know him from. We went to high school together. And he is also a very accomplished musician. But anyway, he could potentially be a speaker on photovoltaic related stuff. And they actually, ACES, the American Solar Energy Society, just got a $26 million grant with, I think, the state of Idaho for solar work in Idaho. I believe that's the right state. He's a very interesting guy and a very talented musician. His dad was president of Moog Music and had synthesizer patents and stuff like that. And Ben and the boys put on a very interesting concert that is, I think the name of the band is Solar Vortex, that has visuals accompanying it, and that are in real time that Ben is generating. And he talks about the physics of what's going on there and connects it to solar energy. And it's fascinating stuff. You should all come to the concert. He's also doing a benefit concert for us on September 28th at the Museum of the Earth. People in the neighborhood should come to anyway. And I haven't already done that, have I, Gina? I don't remember if I connected you. Okay, I will send that along soonish.
I don't remember. You've connected me with a lot of people, which has been great, but I don't think him yet.
Okay, yeah, I don't think I have. I will.
Great. Well, if there aren't other thoughts, I think we can, go ahead and wind down. I know it's finally starting to feel like summer around here, so.
Yeah, 84 today and yesterday, which is not typical May weather.
We had record heat, actually, reaching the 100 already.
Wow.
Woohoo!
Gosh.
No, it's actually a little bit cool for us. It's been in the 50s, which we often get to 60s or 70s in May, but we haven't quite gotten there yet. Had some 60s, not much, but it's okay. We've been having like sunshine, things are green, so I'll take it. Still feels like summer. Starting to feel like summer. Yeah.
Do you notice less ice, less snow where you are?
So we have been getting more snow, but it's been compressed. So we're getting it later and it's melting sooner.
Mm,
So
okay.
that's what's been happening. We have some like more ice, like more melting events in the winter than we've had in the past. Which really sucks because then it's just icy. So obviously it freezes again. It's not like it's gonna stay warm.
And this was for Buffalo. This was the second winter in a row with essentially 2 huge storms and almost no other snow. And both of those storms, the snow melted in a week or so.
Wow. What a bummer. I know.
Yeah,
I
I
love
thought
snow.
I thought it was interesting because I went to the NOAA ELP SOS meeting a couple weeks ago, and I kept hearing because it was up in upstate New York, and I don't know that much about that part of the country, but everybody was talking about how there was less snow, and I thought that was interesting to
Yeah, I know last winter we had about the average amount of snow. I think it was about 96 inches, and then maybe the average is 90. But literally more than 90% of that came in 2 different storms instead of being spread out over the winter. And you know, the Christmas storm of Christmas before last was one of the biggest storms in Buffalo history, which is saying something. And I've got to zip to another meeting too. So
All right.
we'll
Good
Thank
to
you.
see you all. Have
Thanks,
a great rest of
Colleen.
your day.
bye-bye.
Thank you, Colleen. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Dina.